Fujimoto Tatsuki's Look Back rewrote the history of anime expression. Why did a manga by the creator of Chainsaw Man become a film that surpasses the original? Toshio Okada says, the audience is too good-natured. The director's passion for depicting even a manga artist's true feelings and darker impulses. From Pinocchio in 1945 to the present. Why is Look Back alone called the hand-drawn revolution? Toshio Okada gives a thorough breakdown of Fujimoto Tatsuki's genius.
So, with all that in mind, I'd say it's a revolution in anime, and that's what I thought about Look Back. Before the stream started, I was looking at the chat, and in the premium section, apparently there was a YouTuber comparing Look Back with Amadeus. And some people found that compelling, but I don't see it that way. Everyone, the audience, they're too good-natured. What do I mean by too good-natured? Manga artists aren't necessarily pure of heart. In the end, the ones who remain as professionals are often the ruthless ones. So comparing it to Amadeus means, in other words, someone more talented than you existed, and you, like a confessor of your own sins, are probably viewing Look Back as a confession of guilt. And while it does appear that way, the fact that it's not just about that is what I find so remarkable about it. Kayamoto, the one who quits midway, she's not the genius. Rather, the protagonist Fujino is the genius. That's the point. And that's where the real interest lies. I'll talk more about that in the premium section, because what I've said so far is just on the edge of spoiler territory. So I'm sorry. Episode 1. Look Back. A perfect 97 out of 100. It's only Fujimoto Tatsuki, the popular manga artist, published Look Back as a one-shot in Jump Plus in 20, then adapted into a theatrical. Director Ashiyama Kiyotaka, who has been involved in various, such as Evangelion Rebuild and The Boy and the Heron, served as both director and character designer for this film. It's a coming-of-age story depicting two girls who passionately pursue creation, a fourth-grade elementary school, and is well regarded by her classmates. One day, her teacher tells her that she wants to include four-panel manga by a school-refusing classmate, and Fujino, who is confident in her, who can't even come to school. These two polar opposite girls are connected by their devoted passion for manga. However, one day, an event shatters everything. It's incredibly good. It's so incredibly good that all I can say is, there's a line in the anime. It's a line in the manga. Heave-ho. Inside the anime, there are things like shortcuts to improve your drawing skill, and various tips. But the number one thing is, just draw, idiot. If you have time to look things up, just draw, idiot. That's what it's saying. But really it's a work that says, just watch it, idiot. The director's passion and devotion to the original manga is extraordinary. Frank, this theatrical anime has become more interesting than the original. The reason is that it depicts things hidden in the manga, the author's true feelings, and even their darker impulses. The idea that it depicts true and darker impulses might be my imagination, so I'll talk about that in the premium section. For now, to avoid spoilers, I want to talk about just the opening scene. From the night sky and moon, flowing into Fujino's home. Originally, as I mentioned earlier in the free section, I called this work a revolution in animation expression. This revolution in animation expression, what exactly does that mean? To explain in a bit more detail, it was around 1945. There's a Disney production called Pinocchio. This is from the very beginning of the Pinocchio and almost the first scene. The camera moves toward Geppetto's house. That's the scene. This is where it starts. The movie frame looks like this. It's shot like this. Stars are shining. There's a mountain below. And you can see a bit of the town. The camera moves, just changing the angle of a single background painting. And from here it shows the lower landscape. Then a large building in the foreground. And the camera moves in this strange, unusual way. It doesn't move in a straight line. It curves and moves. And as you can see, this tiny film suddenly becomes larger. Around here there seems to be a cut. But even as it grows larger, you can't tell from the large building at the bottom. You think you've passed the large building. Then it disappears in this direction. And in the final frame it ends up like this. Going diagonally. Far in the distance, Geppetto's house with a small light glowing can be seen faintly. And you can see the cobblestones below. And when this part is zoomed in, you enter into the drama. A single background painting creates a dynamic landscape using only camera work. This is craftsmanship and the cinematography by freely moving the camera just by showing one static painting. You can show a whole world, the starry sky, a mountain, a town, individual houses visible, and far in the distance, Geppetto, an old man still working in the middle of the night while everyone else is asleep. It's a wonderfully romantic scene, but it's the craftsmanship of backgrounds and cinematography. When CG animation, this kind of craftsmanship became even more dynamic. And things like drawing backgrounds by hand or being creative with cinematography became unnecessary. Once you build the initial 3D data, you can freely move the viewpoint within it. So unlike Pinocchio, where you had to cleverly fudge the painting and slowly move the camera through it, you can now shoot any kind of image. That freedom of expression expanded further with Spider-Man into Spider-Verse, but conversely, that's also when a limit was reached. After all, when you build 3D data and move a camera, you can shoot anything. And since human imagination is somewhat just like how everyone draws roughly the same when depicting a beautiful, just like how Korean plastic surgery beauties all end up with similar, the ideal composition, the ideal image. When you go for that, that's the boring part of CG created imagery. Because it's ideal, everyone's thinking is similar, and what everyone considers good becomes averaged and standardized. So there's not much surprise anymore. However, in Look Back, when the opening moon and the camera moves to Fujino's home, the camera sways, moving to Fujino's home. First you see the townscape, small rooftops, lights on, and then it slowly zooms in, and all of this is hand-drawn. This is a revival of the wonder and sensibility from the Pinocchio era. With CG, you could add more dynamic movement. You could draw more detailed, accurate, but by deliberately doing it by hand. The imperfections, the noise, things like, they simplified this part. This part became a little rushed. These imperfections are what move people. After having seen 3D to see dynamic imagery done by hand. Deliberately doing CG-like things by hand, people are moved by it. From the Pinocchio era of showing flat images as 3D, the era of truly 3D backgrounds with Studio Ghibli onward. Look Back brings it back to hand-drawn, doing CG-like expression, forcibly by hand, the amazement that creates. Probably, in Wings of Hanyamais, when the rocket launches and ice fragments fall, people are moved by that. That could be done so easily with CG. Even at the time, Sakamoto Ryuichi told me, because this is done by people are moved by it. And I had some trouble getting that to come through. You won't understand it until you actually see it and feel it. Moreover, the Pinocchio camera work I showed earlier, going from the night sky, through the townscape, to Geppetto's place, actually has no real meaning. There's no directorial meaning. It's purely for showing dynamic imagery, simply a technique for showing the background in a three-dimensional way, while calling it craftsmanship. But look back's camera work. The very first shot of the moon, then the camera moving like this, with the lower landscape appearing, is a metaphor for the four-panel manga floating and falling that appears in the work. Falling from Fujino's hand, fluttering, slipping through the gap at the end, falling from Kayamoto's door, the motion of the four-panel. By including this visual foreshadowing, a meaning that doesn't exist in the original manga is added. That's what I found so brilliantly done about it. I think it's incredibly accomplished there. The next scene also doesn't exist in the original, but its brilliance would be a spoiler, and I've already used too much time, so let's discuss it in the premium.